Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something pretty amazing. The Mahakumbh Mela.
Yeah,
It actually just started today
it did.
in Prayagraj.
Prayagraj, yep.
And it's a once-in-a-lifetime event for a lot of people,
Oh, absolutely.
marking 144 years since the last one.
Yeah.
We've got some really incredible sources
Yeah.
to help us kind of understand what makes the Mahakumbh Mela so special.
Yeah.
One of them is Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival.
Oh, fantastic book.
Really helps us understand, beyond the sheer scale of it.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
great opportunity to look at the deeper meaning.
Okay, so let's get into this. The Mahakumbh Mela is essentially a culmination of 12 Kumbh Mela cycles.
Right.
Each one is 12 years long.
Yes,
It's a pretty incredible timescale.
it is.
What's the significance of that number 12?
Well, the number 12, it goes back to Hindu cosmology. It's this idea that a day for the gods represents a year for us here on Earth. So the Mahakumbh Mela, spanning 144 years, takes on this almost cosmic significance.
Yeah.
It's this rare alignment of time and faith.
And speaking of faith, Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, uses this really interesting analogy.
Okay.
It says that the Kumbh Mela symbolizes spiritual wisdom
Okay.
that leads to a profound silence,
Interesting.
like a pitcher that's so full it stops gurgling.
That is a fascinating analogy. What I think is really interesting about it is how it contrasts with Western views on knowledge,
Yeah.
where we emphasize expression and outward action. Here, the focus is on inner transformation, a much quieter, more profound understanding, almost like the silence itself holds wisdom.
Yeah, it makes you think what kind of knowledge can be gained
Right.
through that kind of silence.
Exactly.
But before we go too far down that philosophical road,
Okay.
the book also talks about the origin story of the Kumbh Mela,
Oh, yes.
which is this dramatic battle between gods and demons
Right.
over a pot of nectar,
The nectar, Amrita.
representing immortality.
Yes, and it's spilled in 4 locations, which are now the sacred sites for the festival.
Okay.
Prayagraj, Haridwar, Ujjain, and Nashik.
It's interesting how even in this ancient myth,
Right.
we have this idea of seeking something beyond
Mm-hmm.
our earthly limitations.
It speaks to that human desire for something more, something transcendent.
And for a lot of people attending this Mahakumbh Mela,
Yeah?
that search takes the form of connecting with the divine
Okay.
through bathing in the Ganges.
The book talks about how people view the Ganges as a sacred river, and the act of bathing in it becomes very symbolic. It's this physical act,
Right.
imbued with spiritual meaning, a way to purify themselves
Yeah.
and connect with the divine.
Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, really brings this to life.
Yes.
Through the stories of the sadhus, the holy men and women who attend the festival,
Mhm.
you really see their incredible devotion firsthand.
Yes. One anecdote that really stands out is about this man who was disfigured in a fire. And after praying to the goddess Durga at the Kumbh Mela, his face is said to have been miraculously restored.
Wow.
Pretty powerful.
But the book doesn't present this as just blind faith, does it?
No.
It also emphasizes this idea that each person
Mm-hmm.
needs to find their own path to spirituality.
Exactly. There's this recognition that what works for one person might not work for another. And the Kumbh Mela is really a melting pot of beliefs and practices,
Right.
reflecting the diversity within Hinduism itself. And that's a really important point because it challenges that idea that Hinduism is this rigid set of doctrines. It's more of a way of life, a journey of seeking truth and understanding through different forms.
The book Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, goes a little bit deeper into the symbolism of the kumbha,
Okay.
the pot itself.
Right.
It's more than just a vessel for the nectar.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kumbha represents that spiritual wisdom and the fullness of knowledge, that inner peace and enlightenment that many seekers aim for.
And that actually connects back to that analogy of silence
Right.
that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The silence that comes from a deep understanding
Mm-hmm.
of ourselves and the universe.
It's a silence that speaks volumes, a silence that can be very transformative.
The book also talks about tirtha,
Yes.
the sacredness of places, particularly those connected to the spilled nectar.
Exactly. And the Kumbh Mela is held at 4 such tirthas, each with its own unique energy and significance.
Yeah.
This year, it's Prayagraj,
Okay.
considered the king of tirthas.
Wow.
Pilgrims believe that bathing at the confluence of the Ganga and Yamuna rivers can absolve them of their sins and even redeem their entire family line.
It's fascinating how the Kumbh Mela intertwines
Yeah.
the physical and the spiritual, creating this space for both literal and symbolic cleansing.
Right.
But it's not just about the rituals, right? The book also looks at the myths and legends surrounding the festival.
Yeah.
And suggests that they hold deeper meanings.
Absolutely. They aren't just fanciful stories. They're really profound teachings disguised in symbolic language, meant to stimulate our imaginations and help us grasp spiritual truths that might be difficult to grasp otherwise.
Like the story of the battle between gods and demons.
Exactly. It can be interpreted as a metaphor for our own internal struggles, the battle between good and evil, light and darkness that we all face.
That makes sense. And the nectar Amrita represents the ultimate goal of spiritual seeking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That state of unity with the divine, achieving a kind of immortality.
Yes, you've got it. And the book also delves into this idea of bhakti, the path of love and surrender to the divine. It's not just about rituals or intellectual understanding. It's about cultivating a personal relationship with the divine.
Which is often expressed through those amazing displays of chanting, singing, and dancing.
Right.
That we see at the Kumbh Mela.
And Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, emphasizes that true bhakti involves surrendering the ego, letting go of that need for control, and submitting to the divine will.
It's so interesting how all of these concepts tie together.
Yeah.
But the book doesn't shy away from some of the challenges surrounding the Kumbh Mela either, does it?
Right. It addresses those criticisms related to overcrowding, pollution, and the increasing commercialization of the event.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even deeply spiritual traditions have to kind of navigate the complexities of the modern world.
Absolutely. It raises questions about how to preserve that sanctity of the Kumbh Mela,
right,
while ensuring that it remains accessible to the millions of people who seek its blessings.
That's a discussion for another time, perhaps.
Yeah.
But for now, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
I was really interested in the book's exploration of the different types of sadhus who attend the Kumbh Mela.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course, these sadhus who've renounced worldly life to dedicate themselves to spiritual practice represent this fascinating spectrum of beliefs and approaches within Hinduism.
It's amazing to think about that diversity of paths within a single tradition.
Absolutely. For instance, there are the Naga sadhus, known for their nakedness and mastery of yoga.
Wow.
They represent a tradition of extreme renunciation and rigorous discipline.
And then there are the Udasan sadhus, followers of Guru Nanak, who emphasize meditation and service.
Exactly. Yeah, they offer a more contemplative and introspective path.
Okay.
And then you have the Bairagi sadhus, who have renounced all attachments, including family and possessions, to really focus solely on their spiritual practice.
It's incredible to think about these people who have dedicated their entire lives to seeking a deeper truth.
It is.
It really makes you think about what's important in life.
It does. And the book emphasizes that there's no one right path, that each individual must find what resonates with them.
Yeah.
And the Kumbh Mela, with this diverse mix of sadhus, offers a glimpse into that richness and variety within Hinduism.
Speaking of those individual journeys, the book describes the Kumbh Mela as this potentially transformative experience. It's not just a pilgrimage. It's a chance for a real shift in consciousness.
Exactly. The energy of the gatherings, the rituals, and the presence of realized masters can create this potent environment for breakthroughs and awakenings.
The book shares these incredible stories of people experiencing profound healings and mystical visions and deep insights into reality.
It highlights how the Kumbh Mela isn't just this cultural event, but a sacred space, where the line between the earthly and the divine can blur, leading to these extraordinary experiences.
And it's not just for the deeply devout, is it? The book suggests that anyone approaching the Kumbh Mela with an open mind can be touched by that transformative energy.
Absolutely. The Kumbh Mela offers this very unique opportunity to push those boundaries of understanding and experience firsthand that power of spirituality.
It really makes you wonder if attending an event like this could actually change your perspective on the world.
It could.
But before we get too carried away with these ideas of enlightenment, I'm curious about something else. The book touches on the concept of tirtha.
Ah, yes, tirtha. It refers to the sacredness of specific locations, especially those connected to the myth of the spilled nectar.
And this year, the Mahakumbh Mela is happening in Prayagraj, which is considered the king of tirthas.
Precisely. Pilgrims believe that bathing at the confluence of the Ganga and Yamuna rivers in Prayagraj can absolve them of sins.
Wow.
And even purify their ancestral lineage.
That's a pretty powerful belief. It really highlights the idea that these physical places can hold spiritual significance.
They can.
But the book also goes beyond just the physical and explores the philosophical side of the Kumbh Mela, doesn't it?
It does. Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, delves into these concepts like karma and reincarnation.
Right.
And the pursuit of moksha or liberation from this cycle of birth and death.
These are some pretty big topics. What role do they play in the context of the Kumbh Mela?
Well, the gathering is seen as a culmination of lifetimes of spiritual seeking. It's a time for pilgrims to cleanse their karma and move towards enlightenment.
So it's not just a one-time event, but a point in a much larger journey.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that understanding these concepts isn't just about intellectual knowledge, but about applying them to our lives.
Yeah.
Letting them guide our spiritual journeys.
It's a reminder that the Kumbh Mela isn't just a spectacle.
Yeah.
It's a deeply spiritual practice.
It is.
But in the face of all this modernization and globalization, has the Kumbh Mela faced any challenges in maintaining its authenticity?
That's a good question, and the book doesn't shy away from it. Kumbha, India's Ageless Festival, acknowledges concerns about commercialization.
Yeah.
The influx of tourists and how these things might impact the sacredness of the event.
So it's like this balancing act.
It is.
Between preserving tradition and adapting to this changing world.
Absolutely. The book talks about how organizers and spiritual leaders are trying to maintain those core values of the Kumbh Mela while making it accessible to a wider audience.
It really speaks to this larger challenge of how these ancient traditions can survive and thrive in a modern context.
It does, and it encourages us to think critically about these issues and approach the Kumbh Mela with respect for its traditions, but an awareness of the complexities that it faces.
So as our listener contemplates this incredible event happening in India right now, what final thoughts would you leave them with?
I think the Kumbh Mela is a powerful reminder that spirituality is a lived experience. It's about connecting with something larger than ourselves, seeking truth and recognizing that shared humanity. Whether you're drawn to the myths or the rituals or the philosophical concepts, the Kumbh Mela invites us all to think about what it means to live a meaningful life.
Beautifully said, and perhaps this deep dive has sparked a curiosity in you, our listener, to explore further. Imagine yourself among those millions at the Kumbh Mela.
Yeah.
What would you seek? What would you discover?